An 11-year-old girl built a $5 snow shack on a forgotten lot, while classmates mocked and adults sneered. But beneath her crooked wooden floor lay $265 million in stolen cash, gold, and bonds that powerful men had killed to hide for over 30 years. Before we dive into the story, make sure to smash subscribe because tomorrow we have an extra special story for you that will blow your mind. The wind off the Montana mountains didn't just blow through Frost Ridge. It carved through the town like a blade, sharp enough to sting your lungs and turn your fingers numb in seconds. Winter here wasn't romantic. It wasn't the kind you saw on Christmas cards with smiling families and gentle snowflakes. It was brutal, relentless, and it had a way of exposing exactly who had heat and who didn't. Maya Torres knew which side she was on. At 11 years old, she'd already learned that cold wasn't just about temperature. It was about empty cupboards, about wearing the same coat 2 sizes too small, about watching your breath fog up in your own bedroom because the heat had been shut off again. She lived with her mother, Rebecca, in a rental house on the edge of town where the pavement turned to gravel and the streetlights stopped working. The house itself was a patchwork of peeling paint and cracked windows held together by duct tape, hope, and Rebecca's refusal to give up. Inside, the walls were thin enough to hear the neighbors arguing. The kitchen faucet dripped no matter how tight you turned it. The living room had a couch with springs that poked through the cushions and a coffee table Maya had found at a yard sale for $3. But it was theirs, and Rebecca worked herself to the bone to keep it that way. Rebecca Torres was 32, but looked 40. She had dark circles under her eyes that no amount of sleep could fix, mostly because she never got any. She worked double shifts at Morton's Diner downtown, the kind of place where truckers stopped for coffee at 4 in the morning and tipped in spare change. Her hands were always raw from washing dishes, her feet always aching from standing on linoleum for 12 hours straight. She came home smelling like grease and exhaustion, but she always smiled when she saw Maya. Always asked about homework, always tucked her in, even on nights when she could barely stand. Maya adored her, and she hated seeing her suffer. That's why, on a frozen Tuesday afternoon in early December, Maya made a decision that would change everything. She was walking home from school, boots crunching through snow that hadn't been plowed in days, when she passed the cluster of shops on Main Street. Through the frosted window of Anderson's coffee house, she saw them. Kids her age, maybe a year or 2 older, standing in line with their parents. They wore puffy North Face jackets and name-brand boots. Their cheeks were flushed pink from the cold, but they were laughing, carefree. One boy ordered a large peppermint hot chocolate with extra whipped cream. The sign behind the counter read $7.50, $7.50, for one drink. Maya's stomach twisted. She'd eaten toast for breakfast and would probably eat ramen for dinner. $7.50 could buy her mother a full meal at the diner. And this kid was spending it on sugar and foam. She kept walking, but the image stayed with her. That night, she sat at the kitchen table while her mother counted tips from her apron pocket. Mostly quarters and dimes, a few crumpled ones. Rebecca sighed and wrote a number in her notebook, then crossed it out and wrote a smaller one. Maya watched her quietly. Then she said, "Mama, what if I could make some money?" Rebecca looked up, tired eyes soft. "Baby, you're 11. Your job is school." "I know, but what if I sold something, like hot chocolate or something?" Rebecca smiled faintly. "And where would you sell it?" "I don't know. Maybe on the corner or at the park." Her mother's smile faded into something sadder. "Honey, that's sweet, but people don't buy things from kids anymore. Not unless it's a lemonade stand in the summer, and even then." She trailed off, too exhausted to finish. But Maya didn't let it go. She lay awake that night thinking. The next day after school, she walked a different route, past the empty lot on the corner of Pike and Elm. It was a forgotten patch of land overlooked by everyone. Snow piled high in uneven drifts. Wooden beams from some old structure poked through the white like broken teeth. No one came here. No one cared about it. but it was right on the edge of where school buses dropped kids off, right where people walked to cut through to the grocery store. It was perfect. Maya started sketching plans in the margins of her notebook during class. A small shack, just big enough for her to sit inside. She could sell hot cocoa, $5 a cup, maybe hand warmers too. She could make them herself, rice in a sock, microwaved. Simple, cheap, useful. Her teacher, Miss Calloway, noticed her doodling and frowned. "Maya, are you paying attention?" "Yes, ma'am," she said quickly, flipping the page. But her mind was already building. That weekend, she told her mother the full plan. Rebecca was folding laundry on the couch, the TV murmuring in the background. Maya sat beside her, hands clasped. "Mama, I want to build a little shack on that empty lot by Pike and Elm. I'll sell hot chocolate for $5. People walk by there all the time. I could make money, real money." Rebecca stopped folding. She looked at her daughter for a long time. "Maya, baby, that's a lot of work, and people might not—" She hesitated. "They might not take you seriously." "I don't care," Maya said. "I want to try." Rebecca's eyes glistened. She reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind Maya's ear. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, let's try." They scraped together what they could. Rebecca had $30 in an envelope marked emergency. Maya had $12 from her birthday months ago. They went to the hardware store and bought plywood scraps, a box of nails, and a cheap tarp. The clerk looked at them like they were wasting his time. Back home, they worked in the cold. Maya hammered nails while her mother held the boards steady. Their fingers went numb. The wind bit at their faces. But piece by piece, the shack came together. It wasn't pretty. The walls were uneven. The roof sagged. The door was just a flap of tarp held down with bungee cords. But it stood, barely 4 feet tall and maybe 3 feet wide, just big enough for Maya to crouch inside with a thermos and a smile. They hauled it to the lot on a sled, dragging it through snow in the dark. No one saw them. No one cared. By the time they finished, it was nearly midnight. Maya stood back, breath fogging in the frozen air, and stared at her creation. It looked like something a strong wind could knock over. But it was hers. She painted a sign on a piece of cardboard: hot cocoa and hand warmers, $5. She duct taped it to the front and stepped back. "What do you think?" she asked. Rebecca wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "I think you're the bravest kid I know." The next morning, Maya woke up before dawn. She made hot chocolate in their biggest pot, poured it into 2 thermoses, and stuffed a backpack with paper cups, napkins, and homemade hand warmers. She walked to the lot in the dark, her breath coming out in clouds. The shack was still there. Snow had drifted against one side, but it stood. She crawled inside, set up her supplies, and waited. The first hour, no one came. Cars drove past. A few people walked by, glanced at her, and kept moving. She smiled anyway, waving. By 8 in the morning, her hands were so cold she could barely feel them. She tucked them under her arms and kept waiting. Finally, a man stopped. He was older, maybe 70, with a faded military cap and a limp. He squinted at her sign. "You selling cocoa?" "Yes, sir. $5. It's homemade." He looked at her for a long time, then pulled out a crumpled $5 bill. "All right, kid, let's see what you got." She poured him a cup, hands shaking from cold and nerves. He took a sip, nodded. "Not bad. You out here alone?" "Yes, sir." He frowned. "That's a hell of a thing. You be careful, all right?" "I will. Thank you." He walked away, and Maya clutched the $5 bill like it was gold. She'd done it. She'd made her first sale. But the warmth didn't last long. By midday, 3 kids from her school walked past. She recognized them immediately: Bryce, Jordan, and Natalie. They lived up on the hill in houses with 3-car garages and heated driveways. Bryce saw her first and started laughing. "Oh my God, is that Maya?" Jordan snorted. "What is she doing?" Natalie pulled out her phone. "This is too good." They walked closer, and Maya's stomach sank. "Are you seriously selling hot chocolate out of a cardboard shack?" Bryce asked, grinning. "It's not cardboard," Maya said quietly. "It's wood." "Barely," Jordan said. "Dude, this thing looks like it's going to fall apart." Natalie held up her phone, filming. "This is so sad, like, actually sad." Maya's face burned. She wanted to disappear. "I'm just trying to make some money." "For what?" Bryce laughed. "Is your mum too poor to buy you stuff?" The words hit like a slap. Maya's throat tightened, but she didn't answer. Natalie posted the video before they even left. By the time Maya got home that evening, it was everywhere. The caption read, "POV, you're so broke you sell cocoa out of a trash shack." It had 53 likes. The mockery spread like wildfire. At school, kids whispered and pointed. Some laughed openly. One boy walked past her in the hallway and said, "Hey, Snow Shack girl, you taking orders?" Her teacher pulled her aside after class. "Maya, I heard about your project. You know you need a permit for that, right?" "A permit?" "Yes, you can't just set up a business on public property." "It's not public. It's just an empty lot." "It's still regulated. I'd hate to see you get in trouble." Maya nodded, her chest tight. At the town council meeting that week, someone brought it up. A woman in a blazer stood and gestured dramatically. "There's a child selling beverages out of a makeshift structure on Pike and Elm. It's an eyesore and frankly it's unsanitary. Someone needs to shut it down." The council murmured in agreement. No one asked who the child was. No one cared. Rebecca heard about it from a co-worker and came home fuming. "They're trying to shut you down, baby." Maya sat at the table, staring at her hands. "I know. What do you want to do?" Maya looked up, eyes fierce despite the tears threatening to spill. "I want to keep going." And she did. Every morning she went to the lot. Every afternoon she endured the stares, the whispers, the cruelty. Some days she made $10. Some days she made nothing. But she showed up. A few kind souls became regulars. The old veteran, whose name was Frank, came by twice a week. A young mother with a baby stopped for hand warmers. A homeless man named Cole bought cocoa with quarters and told her she was going to do great things someday. Those moments kept her going. But the weight of the mockery pressed down harder every day. One evening, as she packed up her supplies, she noticed something odd. The ground beneath the shack felt warm, not hot, but noticeably warmer than the frozen earth around it. She knelt and pressed her palm to the snow. It was melting faster here than anywhere else. Strange. She dismissed it and kept packing. But over the next few days, she noticed more. When trucks drove past, the ground vibrated differently under the shack, like it was hollow. She asked Frank about it one morning. "You know anything about this lot?" He scratched his chin. "Old building used to be here. Burned down back in '87, I think. Never rebuilt." "What kind of building?" "Can't remember. Some kind of storage facility, maybe? Owner disappeared right after the fire. Whole thing was suspicious, but nobody looked into it much." Maya filed that away. Suspicious, disappeared, burned down. She didn't know what it meant, but it itched at the back of her mind. 2 weeks into her venture, Maya sat in the shack counting her earnings. $23 in 2 weeks. She'd worked every day, endured humiliation, frozen her fingers, and sacrificed her dignity. $23. It wasn't enough. Not even close. She leaned back against the plywood wall and closed her eyes. Maybe they were right. Maybe this was stupid. Maybe she should just give up. But then she thought of her mother's face when she came home exhausted. She thought of the way Rebecca smiled when Maya handed her the bills, even though it was nothing. She thought of Frank, who told her she mattered. And she decided to keep going. That night, a heavy snow fell, the kind that buried everything in silence. Maya didn't go to the shack. She stayed home, curled up under a blanket, listening to the wind howl. The next morning, her mother shook her awake. "Maya, you need to see this." She pulled on her boots and coat and followed Rebecca outside. The world was white, buried under at least 8 inches of fresh snow. They trudged to the lot, breath fogging, boots sinking deep. When they reached the shack, Maya gasped. The structure had shifted. One corner had sunk into the ground, tilted at an angle. But that wasn't what made her freeze. There was a crack in the earth beneath it. A jagged split, maybe 6 inches wide, running directly under where she usually sat. And from that crack, something glinted in the pale morning light. Something metallic. Something that didn't belong. Maya knelt down, heart pounding. She brushed snow away from the crack and peered inside. Darkness, but deeper, further down, a faint gleam, like metal, like something man-made. "Mama," she whispered. "What is that?" Rebecca crouched beside her, eyes wide. "I don't know, baby." They stared into the crack for a long time, the cold forgotten. Somewhere beneath the snow shack that everyone mocked, beneath the frozen ground of a forgotten lot, something waited, something that had been buried for over 30 years. Something that would change everything. Maya didn't know it yet, but the $23 she'd earned was about to become the least important thing in her life. Because what lay beneath her $5 snow shack wasn't just metal. It was a secret, a fortune, and a danger that had already destroyed lives. She just didn't know it yet. The snow continued to fall, softer now, as Maya and Rebecca stood over the crack. The wind had died down, leaving an eerie stillness that made every sound feel amplified. Maya's heartbeat thundered in her ears. "Should we call someone?" Rebecca asked, her voice uncertain. Maya didn't answer right away. She was thinking about the town council, about the business owners who wanted her gone, about the kids who filmed her and laughed. If she called someone, they'd take over. They'd push her aside. She'd become invisible again. "Not yet," Maya said. "Let's just look first." Rebecca hesitated, then nodded. They returned that evening with a flashlight. The sun had already set, and the lot was dark, lit only by a distant street lamp that barely worked. Maya lay on her stomach in the snow, ignoring the cold seeping through her jacket, and aimed the flashlight into the crack. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating rough stone walls and what looked like concrete. The crack went down at least 10 feet, maybe more. And at the bottom, she could see it clearly now. Metal. Steel, maybe. Edges and corners that formed something rectangular. A door, or a container, or something deliberately placed. "There's definitely something down there," Maya whispered. Rebecca knelt beside her. "This doesn't feel right, baby. What if it's dangerous?" "What if it's important?" Maya countered. They sat in the snow for a while, neither speaking. Finally, Rebecca stood and brushed herself off. "We'll figure it out tomorrow. Come on, you're freezing." Maya took one last look into the crack, then followed her mother home. That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. What could be buried under an abandoned lot? Why would someone hide something beneath a building that burned down decades ago? And why did the ground feel warm? The questions spun endlessly until exhaustion finally pulled her under. The next morning at school, the whispers continued. Someone had printed out screenshots of Natalie's video and taped them to lockers. Maya walked past them with her head down, ignoring the snickers. At lunch, she sat alone at the end of a table, picking at a sandwich her mother had packed. Across the cafeteria, she could see Bryce and his friends laughing, probably at her. She didn't care anymore. Let them laugh. She had something they didn't. A mystery, a secret, maybe even a purpose. After school, instead of going to the shack, she went to the library. The building was old, smelled like dust and binding glue, and the librarian, Mrs. Henson, barely looked up when Maya walked in. Maya went straight to the archive section, where old newspapers were stored on microfiche. She scrolled through editions from 1987, looking for anything about Pike and Elm. It took nearly an hour, but she found it. A small article dated October 15th, 1987. Fire destroys storage facility on Pike Street. Owner missing. The article was brief. A building owned by a man named Marcus Whitfield had burned to the ground in the early hours of October 14th. Authorities suspected arson, but no charges were filed. Whitfield, described as a local businessman, had not been seen since the day before the fire. His whereabouts remained unknown. The property was later seized by the county for unpaid taxes. Maya read it 3 times, committing every detail to memory. Marcus Whitfield, storage facility, missing. She printed the article and tucked it into her backpack. That evening, she showed it to her mother. Rebecca read it slowly, her expression darkening. Maya, this is serious. If someone disappeared and there was arson, that means something bad happened, Maya finished. And whatever's under that lot might be connected. Rebecca set the paper down. We need to tell someone. The police, maybe. And say what? We found a crack in the ground and we think there's something suspicious? Maya shook her head. They'll just kick me off the lot and take over. I want to know what it is first. Baby, this could be dangerous. I know, but I'm careful. I promise. Rebecca looked at her daughter for a long time. She saw the determination in her eyes, the same stubbornness that had kept Maya going despite the mockery. Finally, she sighed. One more day. We look one more time. Then we call someone. Deal? Deal. The next afternoon, Maya returned to the shack with a plan. She brought a rope, a small shovel, and a backpack with supplies. The crack had widened slightly from the freeze and thaw cycle. She could see more now. The metallic object below was definitely man-made. It had a handle and hinges. It was a hatch. Her pulse quickened. She tied the rope to a sturdy post she'd driven into the ground and lowered herself carefully into the crack. The walls were rough, jagged stone and frozen earth. She descended slowly, boots scraping against the sides. When she reached the bottom, she stood in a small cavity, maybe 4 feet wide. The hatch was directly beneath her feet. It was covered in dirt and ice, but she could make out the edges. She knelt and brushed the debris away. The metal was cold, industrial-grade steel. There was a lock, but it was broken, rusted through. She gripped the handle and pulled. It didn't budge. She tried again, using her whole body weight. The hatch groaned, then gave way with a metallic screech that echoed in the confined space. A gust of stale air rushed out, dry and chemical-smelling. Maya aimed her flashlight into the opening. A ladder descended into darkness. Her heart hammered. She should stop. She should go back up and tell someone. But her curiosity was stronger than her fear. She tested the first rung of the ladder. It held. She started climbing down. The descent felt endless. Rung after rung, the darkness swallowing her. The air grew warmer, which made no sense. Finally, her boots hit solid ground. She turned, flashlight sweeping the space, and her breath stopped. She was standing in a vault. The walls were concrete, reinforced with steel beams. The space was massive, at least 30 feet across, and it was filled. Stacks of currency, bundled and wrapped in plastic. Gold bars lined up on metal shelves. Boxes labeled with dates and numbers. Bonds in sealed containers. Documents scattered across a table. Maya's legs went weak. She stumbled backward, pressing her hand against the wall for support. This wasn't possible. This couldn't be real. But it was. She moved closer to one of the stacks, hands trembling. The bills were old, from different decades. 20s, 50s, 100s. Some of them looked crisp, almost new. Others were worn, faded. She picked up a gold bar. It was heavy, solid, real. The engraving read, "Fine gold, 999.9. Her mind spun. How much was here? Millions? Tens of millions? She didn't know. She couldn't process it. She moved to the table and shuffled through the documents. Names she didn't recognize, dates from the 1980s, transactions, transfers, coded language she didn't understand. But one name appeared over and over. Marcus Whitfield, the missing owner. She sat down hard on the concrete floor, flashlight still clutched in her hand. All this time. All the mockery, the humiliation, the $23 she'd fought so hard to earn, and beneath her feet, buried under snow and silence, was a fortune. a secret someone had killed to protect. She didn't know how long she sat there. Minutes, maybe hours. Finally, she stood. She took photos with the cheap phone her mother had given her for emergencies. She photographed the money, the gold, the documents. Then she climbed back up the ladder, pulled herself out of the crack, and lay in the snow, gasping. The world above felt different now. The shack, the mockery, the cruelty. It all seemed so small. She had no idea what she'd just found. She had no idea who it belonged to. But she knew one thing. Her life would never be the same. Maya lay in the snow for what felt like an eternity, her chest heaving, her mind struggling to process what she'd just seen. The cold bit at her exposed skin, but she barely noticed. $200 million, maybe more. She didn't know how to calculate the value of gold bars or bonds or whatever else was stacked in that underground tomb. But she knew it was more money than she'd see in 10 lifetimes. More money than the entire town of Frost Ridge probably saw in a year. She sat up slowly, brushing snow from her jacket. Her hands were shaking, not from cold, but from adrenaline and fear. The shack stood crooked beside her, one corner still sunken into the ground above the crack. Her sign flapped in the wind. Hot cocoa and hand warmers, $5. The absurdity of it hit her like a punch. She'd been out here freezing, selling drinks for pocket change while sitting on top of a fortune that could change everything. She wanted to laugh. She wanted to cry. Instead, she just sat there, numb. Finally, she stood. Her legs felt unsteady, but she forced herself to move. She had to get home. She had to tell her mother. She gathered her supplies, stuffed them into her backpack, and started walking. The streets of Frost Ridge were quiet. A few cars passed, headlights cutting through the dusk. Maya kept her head down, her mind racing. What would her mother say? Would she believe her? Would she be angry that Maya had gone down there alone? The walk home had never felt longer. When she pushed through the front door, Rebecca was at the stove, stirring a pot of soup. She turned, smiling. "Hey, baby, how'd it go today?" Maya dropped her backpack and just stared at her mother. Rebecca's smile faded. "What's wrong? Did something happen?" "Mama," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I went down there." Rebecca froze. "Down where?" "Into the crack. There's a hatch and a ladder, and underneath—" She couldn't finish. Rebecca set down the spoon and walked over, gripping Maya's shoulders. "Underneath what?" Maya pulled out her phone with trembling hands and opened the photos. She handed it to her mother without a word. Rebecca's face went pale. She scrolled through the images, her mouth falling open. Stacks of money, gold bars, documents. She looked up at Maya, eyes wide with shock and something else. Fear. "Maya, what is this?" "I don't know, but it's real. I saw it. I touched it. There's millions of dollars down there, Mama. Maybe more." Rebecca sank into a chair, still staring at the phone. "Oh my God! Oh my God!" She looked up, her expression shifting from shock to panic. "We have to call the police right now." "Wait," Maya said. "Just wait. Let's think about this." "Think about what?" "Maya, this is someone else's money. This is evidence. This could be dangerous." "I know. But what if we call the police and they just take it? What if it disappears and we never know what happens?" Rebecca stood, her voice rising. "That's not our problem. Maya, people don't bury millions of dollars underground unless something very bad is involved. This isn't a treasure hunt. This is serious." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "I know it's serious, but we've been struggling our whole lives. You work yourself to death every single day, and we still can't pay the bills. What if this could change that?" Rebecca's expression softened, but the fear remained. "Baby, I understand, but this isn't ours. And if we try to claim it, we could get hurt, or worse." They sat in silence for a long time. The soup on the stove began to boil over, and Rebecca turned off the heat. Finally, Maya spoke. "Can we just research it first? Find out what it is, who it belonged to. Then we'll call someone, I promise." Rebecca rubbed her face, exhausted. "One day. We look into it tomorrow. But if we find anything dangerous, anything at all, We go to the police immediately. Understood? Understood. That night, neither of them slept much. Maya lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying every detail of the vault. The smell of the stale air, the weight of the gold bar in her hand, the name on the documents, Marcus Whitfield. She grabbed her phone and searched the name. There wasn't much. A few old business registrations, a mention in a 1986 newspaper about a storage company. Then nothing. Like he'd vanished. She kept digging, following threads until her eyes burned. Around 2 a.m, she found something. A forum post from 12 years ago on a true crime website. Someone had written about unsolved disappearances in Montana. Marcus Whitfield was listed. Last seen October 13, 1987. Suspected connections to organized crime, though never proven. Building burned the next day. No body ever found. Case went cold. Maya's stomach turned. Organized crime. She took a screenshot and sent it to her mother. A moment later, Rebecca appeared in her doorway. You need to sleep. Did you see it? I saw it, which is exactly why we're calling the police first thing in the morning. Maya nodded, too tired to argue. The next morning, they went to the Frost Ridge Police Department. It was a small building, barely staffed, with 2 officers on duty. The desk sergeant, a heavy-set man named Officer Dale, looked up from his paperwork with mild annoyance. Help you? Rebecca stepped forward. We need to report something. We found something unusual on a property. What kind of something? Maya pulled out her phone and showed him the photos. Dale's expression shifted immediately. He sat up straighter, eyes narrowing. Where did you take these? The empty lot on Pike and Elm, beneath the ground. There's a hatch leading to a vault. Dale stood. Wait here. He disappeared into a back room. Maya and Rebecca exchanged nervous glances. After what felt like forever, Dale returned with another officer, a younger woman named Officer Kim. We're going to need you to come with us to the site, Kim said. Can you show us exactly where this is? 20 minutes later, they were standing at the lot. Maya's shack still sat crooked over the crack. Dale and Kim examined the opening, shining flashlights down into the darkness. This is a sealed crime scene from '87, Dale muttered. How the hell did this open up? The ground shifted, Maya said. From the snow. Kim looked at her. And you went down there? Alone? Maya nodded. Kim shook her head. Kid, that was incredibly dangerous. You're lucky the structure didn't collapse. Dale was already on his radio, calling for backup and a forensics team. Within the hour, the lot was swarming with people. State police, federal agents, crime scene tape, news vans pulling up, cameras rolling. Maya and Rebecca stood off to the side, watching their quiet discovery turn into a circus. A man in a dark suit approached them. He was tall, maybe 50, with graying hair and sharp eyes. I'm Agent Carver, FBI. I understand you're the ones who found the vault? Rebecca nodded. My daughter did. Carver looked at Maya. That took guts. Also incredibly reckless. But guts nonetheless. He pulled out a notebook. I need to ask you some questions. Starting with, did you touch anything down there? Maya hesitated. I took photos, and I picked up one of the gold bars, just to see if it was real. Carver nodded, writing. Did you see any names on the documents? Anything that stood out? Marcus Whitfield. His name was everywhere. Carver's pen stopped. He looked up. You're sure? Yes, sir. He exchanged a glance with another agent standing nearby. We're going to need to take a full statement from both of you. This is part of an old case, a very old case. They spent the next 3 hours at the police station answering questions. Carver was patient but thorough. He wanted to know everything. How Maya found the crack, why she went down, what she saw, what she touched. By the end, Maya was exhausted. Finally, Carver closed his notebook. All right, here's what I can tell you. That vault has been missing for over 30 years. It's connected to a series of robberies and fraud schemes that Marcus Whitfield orchestrated in the mid-'80s. He stole from banks, investors, and even some very dangerous people. When he disappeared, so did the money. We always suspected he'd hidden it, but we never found it. What happened to him? Maya asked. We don't know. Likely dead. Either killed by the people he stole from or went into hiding and died somewhere quiet. Rebecca leaned forward. So what happens now? To the money? Carver sighed. That's complicated. Legally, it'll be seized as evidence. We'll have to trace where it came from, who it belongs to. Some of it might be returned to original victims. Some might go to the state. It'll take months, maybe years to sort out. Maya's heart sank. So we don't get anything? Carver looked at her carefully. There's something called a finder's fee. In cases like this, if the person who discovers evidence helps recover it, they may be entitled to a percentage, but that's up to the courts, and it's not guaranteed. Rebecca put her arm around Maya. We're just glad we could help. But Maya's mind was already spinning. A percentage, even a small percentage of $200 million would change their lives. As they left the station, reporters swarmed them. Cameras flashed, microphones shoved into their faces. Is it true you found buried treasure? How much money was down there? Did you know what you were looking for? Rebecca pushed through, shielding Maya. No comment. Leave us alone. They made it to their car and drove home in silence. When they pulled into the driveway, Maya noticed something. A black SUV parked across the street. Tinted windows. Engine running. Mama, she said quietly, do you see that? Rebecca followed her gaze. Yeah, probably just reporters. But it didn't feel like reporters. They hurried inside and locked the door. Maya peeked through the curtains. The SUV was still there. 15 minutes later, it drove away. That night, the phone rang. Rebecca answered. Hello? Silence on the other end. Then a click. She hung up, frowning. It rang again. This time, Rebecca didn't answer. It kept ringing. 5 times. 6. Finally, she unplugged it. Maya sat on the couch, her stomach in knots. Mama, I'm scared. Rebecca sat beside her, pulling her close. It's okay. We're safe. The police know everything. We did the right thing. But Maya wasn't so sure. The next morning, they woke to find their mailbox smashed. Lying in the snow beside it was a note. Typed. No signature. You should have left it buried. Rebecca called the police immediately. Officer Kim came by, took the note and promised to increase patrols in the area. But Maya could see the worry in her mother's eyes. That afternoon, while Rebecca was at work, Maya got a text from an unknown number. Smart girl, but not smart enough. Watch your back. Her hands shook as she screenshot it and sent it to her mother. Rebecca called immediately. Pack a bag. We're leaving. What? Where are we going? I don't know. A motel. Anywhere but here. I'll be home in 10 minutes. Maya started throwing clothes into a backpack, her heart racing. Then she heard it. Footsteps on the porch. She froze. The doorknob rattled. She backed away slowly, eyes on the door. The rattling stopped. Then a knock. Loud, insistent. Maya Torres, I need to speak with you. The voice was male, calm but unfamiliar. She didn't answer. My name is Samuel Porter. I'm here to help. Maya crept to the window and peeked out. A man stood on the porch. Older, maybe 60, with silver hair and a weathered face. He wore a simple jacket and jeans. He didn't look threatening, but that didn't mean he wasn't. I'm a retired FBI agent, he called through the door. I worked the Whitfield case 30 years ago. I saw the news. I know you're in danger. What Maya finds next will turn her small town upside down and put her family in danger they never imagined. But it will also reveal a truth that's been buried for over 30 years. Stay tuned to see what happens next. If you're enjoying the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more. Maya didn't move. Her mother had told her never to open the door for strangers, ever. But something about his voice, steady, honest, made her hesitate. How do I know you're telling the truth? She called back. You don't, but in about 5 minutes, a black SUV is going to come down this street. The men inside aren't here to help you. They're here to scare you into silence. If you let me in, I can explain everything. If you don't, you're on your own. Maya's pulse hammered. She looked out the window again. The street was empty. She made a decision. She unlocked the door but kept the chain on, opening it just a crack. Samuel stood with his hands visible, palms out. "Thank you. I know you're scared. You should be. But I'm not your enemy. Prove it." He reached slowly into his jacket and pulled out a badge. Retired FBI. The photo matched his face. "I left the Bureau 15 years ago, but I never stopped thinking about this case. Marcus Whitfield ruined lives. He stole from people who couldn't afford it. When he vanished, so did any chance of justice. Until now." Maya studied him. "Why do you care?" "Because I made a promise to the victims that I'd find that money. I failed. You succeeded. That makes you either very lucky or very unlucky. Depends on how the next few days go." Before Maya could respond, she heard it. An engine, low and rumbling. She looked past Samuel. A black SUV turned onto the street, moving slowly. Samuel's expression darkened. "That's them. Let me in. Now." Maya hesitated one more second, then unhooked the chain. Samuel stepped inside, and she locked the door behind him. He moved to the window, staying out of sight. "How many people know you found the vault?" "The police, the FBI agent Carver, and now everyone, because it's all over the news." "Carver's good, but he's federal, which means he has rules. These people don't." The SUV stopped in front of the house. Two men got out. They wore dark clothes, sunglasses despite the overcast sky. They didn't approach the house. They just stood there, watching. Samuel pulled out his phone and took a photo. "Stay away from the windows." "Who are they?" "Whitfield's old associates, or their children. 30 years is a long time, but grudges don't die, neither does greed." One of the men pointed toward the house, then got back in the SUV. It drove away slowly. Samuel exhaled. "You need to leave, tonight, somewhere they can't find you." Just then, Rebecca's car screeched into the driveway. She burst through the door, saw Samuel, and froze. "Who the hell are you?" Samuel raised his hands. "Samuel Porter, retired FBI. I'm here to help." Rebecca looked at Maya. "Are you okay?" Maya nodded quickly. "He's telling the truth, Mama. He showed me his badge, and there were men outside, in a black SUV. Rebecca's face went pale. She looked at Samuel. "What's going on?" He spent the next 20 minutes explaining everything. The original case, Whitfield's crimes, the people he'd stolen from, and the people he'd worked with. The likelihood that some of them were still out there, still watching. "That money isn't just evidence," Samuel said. "It's leverage. Some of it belongs to crime families who've been looking for it for decades. They're not going to let it go easily." Rebecca sank into a chair. "So, what do we do?" "You cooperate fully with the FBI. You don't talk to anyone else. No reporters, no lawyers who approach you out of nowhere, no one. And you stay somewhere safe until this gets sorted out." "For how long?" "Weeks. Maybe months." Rebecca looked at Maya, then back at Samuel. "We can't afford that. I have a job. She has school. You also have your lives, which is worth more." The room fell silent. Finally, Rebecca nodded. "Okay, we'll do it, but we need help." Samuel pulled out a card. "This is my number. Call me anytime. I know people. I can get you into a safe location, off the grid, just until the initial chaos dies down." Rebecca took the card. "Why are you helping us?" Samuel's expression softened. "Because I've seen what happens when people like you get caught in the middle of something like this. You don't deserve it. And because that girl," he nodded at Maya, "is braver than most adults I know, she deserves a chance." Maya felt her throat tighten. For the first time in days, she felt like someone was on her side. That night, they packed everything they could fit in the car. Clothes, documents, photos. Rebecca called her boss and quit over the phone. She didn't give a reason. She didn't have time. Samuel arranged for them to stay at a small cabin 2 hours north, owned by a friend who owed him a favor. It was remote, no neighbors, no internet, just a landline and a wood stove. They left at midnight, headlights off until they reached the highway. Maya looked back at their house one last time, wondering if they'd ever return. The cabin was cold and smelled like pine. Rebecca got the fire going while Maya unpacked. They didn't talk much. Exhaustion and fear had drained them both. But as they sat by the fire that night, wrapped in blankets, Rebecca finally spoke. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry you got dragged into this." Maya shook her head. "It's not your fault. I'm the one who went down there. You were just trying to help. You've been trying to help since you were old enough to hold a wrench. That's not a burden you should carry." Tears slipped down Maya's cheeks. "I thought if I could make some money, you wouldn't have to work so hard. I thought I could fix things." Rebecca pulled her close. "You don't need to fix anything. You're 11. You're supposed to be worrying about homework and friends, not whether we can pay rent." "But we couldn't. We still can't." "I know, but that's my job to worry about, not yours." They sat in silence, the fire crackling. Finally, Maya whispered, "Do you think we'll get any of it? The money?" Rebecca sighed. "I don't know. Maybe. But even if we don't, we did the right thing, and that matters more." The next few days blurred together. Samuel called twice a day to check in. The news coverage intensified. Reporters dug into Maya's life, her school, her mother's work history. Some painted her as a hero. Others called her a lucky opportunist. One headline read, "11-year-old stumbles upon fortune while town mocked her snow shack business." Another read, "Girl's discovery tied to decades-old crime ring." Maya stopped reading them. Meanwhile, the FBI continued their investigation. Agent Carver called to update them. They'd catalogued the vault's contents. The total value was estimated at $265 million. $265 million. The number didn't even feel real. Carver also confirmed that several of Whitfield's old associates had resurfaced, likely drawn by the news. Some were still dangerous. Others just wanted their cut. "We're working to identify everyone involved," Carver said. "But this is going to take time. You did the right thing by leaving town." "How long until it's safe?" Rebecca asked. "I can't say for sure. Months at least. Maybe longer." Rebecca hung up and stared at the wall. Maya sat beside her. "We'll be okay," Maya said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Rebecca nodded, but the worry in her eyes remained. One afternoon, while Rebecca was chopping wood outside, Maya sat by the window watching the snowfall. The silence of the cabin was oppressive, heavy. She missed school, even though kids had been cruel. She missed the shack, ridiculous as it was. She missed feeling like she had a purpose. Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Hello? Is this Maya Torres?" The voice was female, professional. "Who's asking?" "My name is Christine Wells. I'm an attorney specializing in asset recovery and whistleblower cases. I saw your story on the news. I'd like to offer my services." Maya's heart skipped. "I don't have any money to pay you." Christine laughed softly. "I work on contingency. That means I only get paid if you do. And based on what I've read, you have a very strong case for a finder's fee." "How strong?" "Strong enough that I think you could walk away with anywhere from 10 to 40% of the recovered assets, maybe more." Maya's hands trembled. 40% of $265 million. She couldn't even calculate that. "Why would you help me?" "Because cases like this are rare, and because I believe people who do the right thing should be rewarded, not punished." Maya wanted to believe her, but Samuel's warning echoed in her mind. "Don't talk to anyone who approaches you out of nowhere." "Can I think about it?" "Of course. Here's my number. Call me when you're ready." Christine rattled off the digits, and Maya scribbled them on a scrap of paper. When Rebecca came back inside, Maya showed her the note. Rebecca called Samuel immediately. He ran a background check on Christine Wells. 2 hours later, he called back. "She's legitimate. One of the best in the field, actually. If you're serious about pursuing a claim, she's a good choice." Rebecca looked at Maya. "What do you think?" Maya stared at the phone number. A part of her wanted to forget the whole thing. to walk away and never think about vaults or gold or danger again. But another part, the part that had built a snow shack out of scraps and refused to quit when the world laughed, that part wanted to fight. "I think we call her," Maya said. Rebecca nodded. "Okay, we call her." That night, they sat by the fire and made a list of questions. What would the process look like? How long would it take? What were the risks? The next morning, Rebecca dialed Christine's number. The lawyer answered on the second ring. They talked for over an hour. Christine explained the legal landscape, the precedents, the likelihood of success. She was honest about the challenges. The government would fight to keep as much as possible. Other claimants would emerge. It would be a battle, but it was a battle they could win. "I'll take your case," Christine said, "but I need full cooperation, complete transparency, and patience. This won't be quick." "We understand," Rebecca said. "Then let's get started." Over the next week, Christine filed the initial paperwork. News outlets picked up the story again. Girl who found fortune now fighting for her share. The town of Frost Ridge erupted in debate. Some supported Maya. Others called her greedy. The town council issued a statement saying the money should go to the county. Business owners who'd complained about her shack now claimed they'd always believed in her. Bryce, Jordan, and Natalie, the kids who'd mocked her, suddenly posted supportive messages online. Maya saw right through it. But she didn't respond. She had bigger things to focus on. Samuel continued checking in. The black SUV had been spotted twice more, both times near the cabin's general area, though never close enough to confirm they'd been found. "They're fishing," Samuel said, "but they haven't found you yet. Stay put." One evening, as the sun set over the snow-covered mountains, Maya stood on the cabin's porch. The air was crisp, biting, but she didn't mind. She thought about the journey that had brought her here. From a $5 snow shack to a $265 million discovery. From being mocked to being feared. She didn't feel like a hero. She didn't feel like a victim either. She just felt like a girl trying to survive, trying to protect her mother, trying to prove that people like them mattered. Rebecca stepped outside, wrapping a blanket around Maya's shoulders. "You okay?" Maya nodded. "Just thinking. About how weird life is. A month ago, I was worried about making enough money to buy you a birthday present. Now we're hiding in a cabin because people want to kill us over something I found by accident." Rebecca smiled sadly. "Yeah, weird doesn't even cover it." They stood together in the cold, watching the sky turn pink and orange. Somewhere out there, powerful people were plotting. Lawyers were filing motions. Reporters were spinning stories. But in that moment, on that porch, it was just the two of them. And for now, that was enough. The story broke wide open on a Tuesday morning. Maya and Rebecca were eating breakfast in the cabin when Samuel called, his voice tight with urgency. "Turn on the news. Any channel." Rebecca fumbled for the remote. Every station was running the same story. Aerial footage of the Pike and Elm lot, now surrounded by FBI vehicles and excavation equipment. Close-ups of agents carrying sealed boxes from the vault, and plastered across every chyron. Montana girl discovers $250 million fortune, legal battle begins. Maya's school photo filled the screen, the one from last year where her hair was messy and her smile looked forced. A reporter stood in front of their old house, gesturing dramatically. Maya Torres, just 11 years old, stumbled upon what experts are calling one of the largest cash recoveries in state history. But the question everyone's asking is, who does it belong to? The segment cut to interviews. Agent Carver, stone-faced, saying the investigation was ongoing. A county official claiming the money belonged to the state since the property had been seized for unpaid taxes. Then the screen showed someone Maya didn't recognize. A woman in her 50s, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "Marcus Whitfield was my uncle," she said, voice breaking. "That money is my family's inheritance. We've been looking for it for decades." Rebecca muted the television. "That's a lie. Whitfield didn't have family. Samuel checked." "Doesn't matter if it's a lie," Maya said quietly. People will believe her. Samuel's voice crackled through the phone speaker. She's not the only one. 3 more people have already filed claims. Distant cousins, former business partners, all of them crawling out of the woodwork. Christine's office is being flooded. What do we do? Rebecca asked. You sit tight. Christine knows what she's doing, but brace yourselves. This is about to get ugly. He wasn't wrong. By that afternoon, the media circus had reached a fever pitch. Reporters descended on Frost Ridge like locusts. They interviewed anyone who'd ever spoken to Maya. Her teachers, her classmates, the owner of Morton's Diner where Rebecca had worked. Some painted Maya as a scrappy underdog who deserved every penny. Others suggested she'd known about the vault all along and had been running a con with her snow shack as cover. One tabloid ran a headline, "Too good to be true, inside the suspicious discovery that has everyone talking." Bryce, Jordan and Natalie gave a joint interview to a local station. They sat on Jordan's parents' leather couch, faces somber and rehearsed. "We always knew Maya was special," Natalie said, nodding earnestly. "She's so brave." The video of them mocking her shack had conveniently disappeared from social media. Jordan added, "We're just hoping she gets what she deserves." Maya watched the clip on Samuel's laptop and felt sick. "They're lying. They made my life hell." "I know," Samuel said, "but that's how it works. When there's money involved, everyone wants to be your friend." The town council held an emergency meeting. Mayor Richard Brennan, a portly man who'd ignored Maya's existence for her entire life, stood at a podium looking grave. The discovery on Pike and Elm represents a significant opportunity for Frost Ridge. That money could fund schools, infrastructure, public services. It belongs to this community, not to one individual. The room erupted in applause. Maya watched from the cabin, feeling a hot rage build in her chest. "They called my shack an eyesore," she said. "They wanted me gone. Now they want the money I found." Rebecca put a hand on her shoulder. "People are hypocrites, baby, especially when they're scared of losing something." Christine Wells called that evening with an update. "We've got 5 active claimants now. The state of Montana, the county, 2 people claiming to be Whitfield's relatives, and a man who says Whitfield owed him money from a business deal in 1984. "Can they win?" Rebecca asked. "Some of them have decent cases. The state's argument is strong, but so is yours. You found the money on abandoned county property. The county failed in its duty to secure the site for over 30 years. That negligence works in our favor." "What are our chances?" Christine paused. "Honest answer, 50-50. Maybe 60-40 if the judge is sympathetic. But we're going to fight like it's 100%. The legal filings began. Christine submitted a formal claim on Maya's behalf, citing Montana's finder's law and precedent cases dating back to 1873. The state countered with a motion to dismiss, arguing that the money was proceeds of crime and therefore subject to seizure. The county filed its own claim, asserting ownership of both the land and everything beneath it. The alleged relatives submitted DNA evidence that Christine immediately challenged as fraudulent. It was a legal war, fought on multiple fronts, and Maya was at the center of it all. The threats escalated. One morning, Rebecca's phone rang at 6. She answered groggily, heavy breathing on the other end, then a voice, distorted and mechanical. "Drop the case. Final warning." She hung up, hands shaking. Samuel arranged for a security system to be installed at the cabin. Cameras, motion sensors, panic buttons. It felt like overkill until the first incident. Maya was outside splitting kindling when she heard a car engine. She looked up to see a dark sedan creeping up the dirt road toward the cabin. Her heart seized. She dropped the wood and ran inside, slamming the door and locking it. "Mama!" Rebecca rushed from the kitchen. They watched through the window as the sedan stopped about 50 yards away. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a baseball cap pulled low. He stood there for a long moment, staring at the cabin. Then he got back in and drove away. Samuel arrived within the hour. He reviewed the security footage and ran the license plate. It came back stolen. They're testing you, he said, seeing if you'll break. What if we do? Maya asked quietly. Samuel knelt down to her level. Then they win. And people like them always win when good people give up. Is that what you want? Maya shook her head. Then you keep going. But the pressure kept mounting. Rebecca received a call from her old boss at Morton's Diner. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I have to let you go. What? Why? Corporate says you're a liability. With all the media attention, customers are uncomfortable. Some are saying you knew about the money and didn't report it right away. It's causing problems. That's not true. We reported it immediately. I believe you, but my hands are tied. Rebecca hung up, tears streaming down her face. She'd worked at that diner for 9 years. 9 years of doubles shifts, burned hands, and customers who tipped in nickels, and they'd fired her over a phone call. Maya hugged her mother tight. We'll be okay. We'll figure it out. But inside, she was terrified. Without Rebecca's income, they had nothing. Savings had run dry weeks ago. They were living off money Samuel loaned them, which Rebecca hated accepting. The cabin was free, but they still needed food, gas, basic supplies. The pressure was suffocating. At school, which Maya attended remotely now via a laptop, the isolation was complete. Her former classmates sent messages ranging from supportive to venomous. One girl wrote, I hope you get the money. You deserve it. Another wrote, You're so greedy. Just give it back. The teachers didn't know how to handle it. They treated her differently now, with a strange mix of pity and suspicion. One asked if she was still planning to finish the semester or if she'd be too busy being rich. Maya stopped logging in. Then came the night that changed everything. It was late, nearly midnight. Maya was asleep when she heard glass shatter. She bolted upright. Rebecca was already moving, grabbing the baseball bat they kept by the bed. Footsteps on the porch, heavy, deliberate. Rebecca whispered urgently, Get in the closet, now! Mama, now! Maya scrambled into the bedroom closet, pulling the door shut. Through the slats, she could see her mother standing in the hallway, bat raised, phone in her other hand. The front door rattled. Then a voice, muffled but clear. We know you're in there. We just want to talk. Rebecca didn't respond. Her thumb hovered over the panic button on the security system. You found something that doesn't belong to you. People are willing to pay to make sure you don't keep it. A lot of money. More than you'd get from the courts. Still, Rebecca said nothing. Last chance, open the door or we open it for you. Rebecca hit the panic button. Instantly, alarms shrieked through the cabin. Floodlights blazed on outside. The footsteps retreated quickly, followed by car doors slamming and an engine roaring to life. By the time the police arrived 15 minutes later, the intruders were long gone. The officers found a brick on the porch with a note tied to it. Next time, we won't ask nicely. Maya emerged from the closet, shaking. Rebecca held her, both of them trembling. Samuel arrived an hour later with 2 private security guards. You're not staying here anymore, he said. It's not safe. Where are we supposed to go? Rebecca asked. I have a place, a friend's ranch about 3 hours west, gated, guarded, off the grid. You'll be safe there. They packed in silence and left before dawn. The ranch was exactly as Samuel described. Isolated, secure, and surrounded by miles of empty Montana wilderness. The owner, a retired marshal named Tom, greeted them with a firm handshake and a promise. No one gets through that gate without going through me first. For the first time in weeks, Maya slept through the night. But even there, the outside world found ways to intrude. Christine called with updates on the case. The court had scheduled a preliminary hearing for March 15th. All parties would present their arguments, and the judge would decide whether Maya's claim had merit. If we win this, we move forward, Christine explained. If we lose, it's over. What do we need to do? You need to testify, both of you. The judge needs to hear your story directly. Maya's stomach dropped. In front of everyone? In front of everyone. The thought terrified her. Speaking in front of a classroom made her anxious. Speaking in a courtroom with cameras and reporters and hostile lawyers, felt impossible. But Rebecca squeezed her hand. "We'll do it, together." The weeks leading up to the hearing were a blur of preparation. Christine drilled them on what to say, how to say it, what questions to expect. She was relentless but kind, pushing them to be clear, honest, and unshakable. "The other side will try to make you look opportunistic," Christine said. "They'll suggest you were trespassing, that you had no right to be on that property, that you're exploiting a tragedy for profit. You have to stay calm and tell the truth." Maya practiced her testimony dozens of times. She recited the facts: the snow shack, the crack, the decision to explore, the discovery. Each time, Christine found something to improve. "Don't say you wanted to see what was down there. Say you needed to understand what was beneath your business location. It sounds more responsible." "But that's not what I was thinking. It's what you should have been thinking. And legally, it's the same thing." Maya hated the parsing of words, the careful crafting of truth, but she understood it was necessary. The hearing took place in a federal courthouse in Helena. The building was imposing, all stone columns and polished marble. Reporters lined the steps, cameras flashing as Rebecca and Maya arrived with Christine and Samuel. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Lawyers for the state, the county, and the other claimants sat at their respective tables, briefcases open, faces grim. Maya recognized the woman claiming to be Whitfield's niece, sitting in the gallery, still dabbing her eyes with a tissue. The judge, a severe-looking woman named Judith Klein, entered, and everyone stood. She had short grey hair, sharp eyes, and the kind of presence that demanded silence. "Be seated," she said, her voice cutting through the murmurs. She reviewed the case file, flipping through pages with methodical precision. Then she looked up. "This is a preliminary hearing to determine the validity of various claims to assets recovered from a sealed vault on county property in Frost Ridge, Montana. We'll hear arguments from each party, starting with the state." The state's attorney stood. He was polished, confident, and dismissive. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward case. The money in question is proceeds of crime, stolen from multiple sources over several years by Marcus Whitfield, a known criminal. Under state and federal law, such proceeds are subject to seizure and forfeiture. The fact that an 11-year-old girl happened to stumble upon it does not grant her ownership." He continued for 20 minutes, citing statutes and precedents, painting Maya as an accidental bystander with no legal standing. The county's attorney went next, arguing that since the property belonged to the county, so did everything on or beneath it. "The county has maintained ownership of this land since 1988. Any discovery made on county land is county property. This is established law." The alleged niece's lawyer was emotional, theatrical. "Your Honor, my client has suffered for decades, wondering what happened to her uncle and his estate. This money represents her family's legacy. To give it to a stranger would be a profound injustice." Then it was Christine's turn. She stood, calm and commanding. "Your Honor, let's cut through the noise and focus on the facts. Maya Torres is an 11-year-old girl who started a small business on an abandoned lot. A lot the county neglected for over 30 years. A lot they failed to secure, failed to monitor, and failed to investigate despite documented suspicions of criminal activity. During the course of her lawful business operations, Maya discovered a structural anomaly and investigated it. What she found was evidence of a crime that had gone unsolved for 3 decades. She immediately reported it to authorities. She cooperated fully with the investigation. She did everything right. And now, the very entities that failed in their duties want to punish her for their negligence. Montana law is clear. A finder of lost or abandoned property has a legal claim, particularly when the original owner is deceased and the property was discovered on land where the finder had a legal right to be. Maya had every right to be on that lot. The county's failure to prevent her from being there is not her fault. It's theirs. Furthermore, the state's argument that these are proceeds of crime ignores a critical fact. Many of the original victims are deceased or untraceable. The state wants to seize this money not to return it to victims, but to enrich itself. That's not justice, that's opportunism. Maya Torres is not asking for something she didn't earn. She's asking for recognition of her legal rights under Montana law. She's asking for fairness. And she's asking this court to hold accountable the institutions that failed to do their jobs. The courtroom was silent when Christine sat down. Judge Klein scribbled notes, her expression unreadable. "We'll hear testimony from the minor claimant. Maya Torres, please take the stand." Maya's legs felt like water as she stood. Rebecca gave her an encouraging nod. Samuel mouthed, "You've got this." She walked to the witness stand, was sworn in, and sat down. The chair was too big. Her feet barely touched the floor. Judge Klein looked at her, not unkindly. "Miss Torres, I'm going to ask you some questions. Just answer honestly. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Tell me in your own words why you built your business on that particular lot." Maya took a breath. "Because no one else wanted it. It was close to where kids walked after school. I thought maybe people would buy hot chocolate on cold days. I just wanted to help my mum with bills." "And when you discovered the crack in the ground, what made you decide to investigate?" "I was curious. And the ground felt warm, which didn't make sense. I thought maybe there was a pipe or something broken underneath. I wanted to make sure my shack was safe." "So you went down into the vault alone?" "Yes, ma'am." "Were you scared?" "Yes, ma'am, but I wanted to know what was there." "And when you saw the money, what was your first thought?" Maya hesitated. She could lie, say something noble. But Christine had drilled into her. "Tell the truth." "I thought maybe it could help us. My mom works so hard and we still can't afford things. I thought if it was real, maybe our life could be different." Judge Klein nodded slowly. "Thank you for your honesty. Now, did anyone tell you to go down there? Did anyone suggest there might be something valuable?" "No, ma'am. I didn't even know what I'd find." "And after you discovered it, you reported it immediately?" "My mom and I went to the police the next morning." Judge Klein made another note. Then the state's attorney stood. "Your Honor, I'd like to cross-examine." "Proceed." The attorney approached, his expression hard. "Miss Torres, you said you were running a business. Did you have a permit?" "No, sir." "Did you pay taxes on your earnings?" Maya's stomach twisted. "No, sir, I didn't make enough to—" "So you were operating an illegal, unlicensed business on property you didn't own, is that correct?" Christine shot to her feet. "Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is badgering a child over a lemonade stand." Judge Klein raised a hand. "Sustained. Rephrase, Counselor." The attorney smirked. "Miss Torres, you admit you had no legal right to be on that property?" "I didn't think I needed permission. It was abandoned." "But it wasn't yours." "No, sir." "So you trespassed, found something valuable, and now you want to keep it. Doesn't that strike you as wrong?" Maya's eyes filled with tears, but she held his gaze. "I didn't trespass. I was trying to survive, and I didn't keep anything. I reported it because it was the right thing to do. If I wanted to keep it, I would have stayed quiet." The attorney paused, clearly not expecting that answer. He tried a different angle. "You realize that money was stolen, correct? That it belonged to people who were victims of a crime?" "Yes, sir, and I hope they get it back, but most of them are gone, and the people trying to claim it now, they didn't do anything. They just showed up because they saw it on the news. That's not for you to decide." "Then why is everyone else deciding?" Maya's voice broke, but she kept going. "Everyone who laughed at me, everyone who called my shack garbage, they all want the money now. The town that tried to shut me down wants it. People who didn't care that my mum worked 2 jobs and we still couldn't eat, they want it. Where were they when I needed help? Where were they when I was freezing in that shack trying to make $5? The courtroom was dead silent. Judge Klein leaned forward. "Continue, Miss Torres." Maya wiped her eyes. "I don't think I deserve all of it. I don't even know if I deserve any of it. But I know I deserve to be treated fairly. I know I didn't do anything wrong. And I know that if this was someone rich, someone powerful, everyone would be calling them smart and brave. But because I'm poor, because I'm a kid, I'm supposed to just go away and let people who did nothing take everything. That's not fair. She looked directly at Judge Klein. I just want fairness, that's all. The attorney sat down. He had no more questions. Christine stood. The defense rests, Your Honor. Judge Klein sat back in her chair, studying Maya for a long moment. Then she looked at Rebecca, who was crying quietly in the gallery. She looked at the other lawyers, at the reporters scribbling frantically, at the packed courtroom. Finally, she spoke. I'll take this under advisement. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks for my decision. Court is adjourned. The gavel struck and everyone stood. Maya stepped down from the witness stand, her legs shaking. Rebecca pulled her into a fierce hug. Christine put a hand on her shoulder. You did beautifully. Samuel nodded. That was the bravest thing I've ever seen. But Maya didn't feel brave. She felt exhausted, hollowed out, like she'd given everything and didn't know if it was enough. As they left the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Questions flew from every direction. Maya, how do you feel? Do you think you'll win? What will you do with the money? Rebecca shielded her, pushing through the crowd. They made it to Samuel's truck and drove away, leaving the chaos behind. That night, back at the ranch, Maya sat on the porch watching the stars. Rebecca joined her, wrapping a blanket around both their shoulders. I'm proud of you, Rebecca said softly. You stood up there and told the truth. No matter what happens, that took courage. Maya leaned into her mother. Do you think we'll win? I don't know, baby, but I know we fought, and sometimes that's all you can do. They sat in the quiet, the Montana sky vast and endless above them. Somewhere out there, a judge was deciding their fate. Somewhere out there, people were still plotting, still scheming, still trying to take what wasn't theirs. But for now, in this moment, they had each other. And that, Maya realized, was worth more than all the gold in the world. The 2 weeks felt like 2 years. Maya and Rebecca stayed at the ranch, trapped in a purgatory of waiting. Every morning, Maya woke hoping for news. Every night she went to bed with nothing but silence. Christine called occasionally with procedural updates, but nothing substantial. The judge was deliberating. That was all anyone knew. The media, meanwhile, had moved on to other stories. The circus had packed up and left town. But the online debates raged on. Reddit threads dissected every aspect of the case. Legal blogs analyzed precedents. Facebook groups formed on both sides, some supporting Maya, others demanding the money go to the state. Maya stopped reading all of it. She spent her days helping Tom with ranch work, feeding horses, mending fences, anything to keep her hands busy and her mind quiet. Rebecca took a job at a small diner an hour away, refusing to accept more money from Samuel. I need to work, she told him. I need to feel like myself. Samuel understood. He'd been there every step of the way, a constant presence, checking in daily, bringing groceries, making sure they felt safe. Maya had grown to trust him completely. He was the grandfather she'd never had. On the 13th day, Christine's call came at 7 in the morning. Rebecca's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. She answered, hands shaking. Hello. It's Christine. The judge issued her ruling. We need to be in court at 10. What did she decide? She didn't say over the phone, but we need to be there. They dressed quickly, barely speaking. Samuel drove them to Helena, the truck cutting through morning fog that clung to the highway like ghosts. Maya stared out the window, her stomach in knots. This was it. After everything, the discovery, the threats, the testimony, the fear, it all came down to what one judge had decided in a closed office somewhere. The courthouse was less crowded this time. No reporters on the steps. Just a handful of cameras and a few curious onlookers. Inside, the courtroom held maybe 40 people. The state's attorneys were there, looking confident. The county's lawyer checked his watch impatiently. The alleged niece sat in the same spot, tissue ready. Maya, Rebecca, and Christine took their seats at the plaintiff's table. Samuel sat directly behind them. Judge Klein entered at exactly 10. Everyone stood. She sat, arranged her papers, and looked out over the courtroom with an expression that gave nothing away. "Please be seated." The rustle of clothing and shuffling of feet filled the silence. Then, nothing. Judge Klein cleared her throat. "I've spent the last 2 weeks reviewing the arguments, the evidence, and the applicable law. This case presents unique challenges. On one hand, we have a minor who discovered evidence of a crime and reported it appropriately. On the other, we have a substantial sum of money with a complicated and criminal history. The question before me is not who deserves this money based on moral grounds, but who has the strongest legal claim under Montana and federal law." She paused, glancing at her notes. "The state argues that these assets are proceeds of crime and subject to forfeiture. That argument has merit. However, the state's position is complicated by the fact that the original crimes occurred over 30 years ago. Many of the victims are deceased. Many of the stolen funds have been commingled with other assets to the point where tracing them to specific victims is impossible. Furthermore, the state's failure to investigate this property thoroughly after Whitfield's disappearance represents a significant lapse in due diligence." Maya's heart pounded. She could barely breathe. "The county argues ownership based on property rights. However, the county seized this land for unpaid taxes and then abandoned it. They failed to secure it, inspect it, or maintain it for over 3 decades. Their negligence directly led to the conditions that allowed this discovery. That negligence undermines their claim." Judge Klein looked directly at the woman claiming to be Whitfield's niece. "As for the familial claims, the DNA evidence submitted has been reviewed and found to be inconclusive at best, fraudulent at worst. I find no credible evidence that any of the familial claimants have legitimate standing." The woman gasped dramatically. Judge Klein ignored her. "Which brings us to Maya Torres, an 11-year-old girl operating a makeshift business on abandoned property. By all accounts, she had no knowledge of what lay beneath the ground. Her discovery was accidental. Her reporting was immediate and cooperative. The question is whether her actions constitute a legal basis for a finder's claim." Judge Klein paused, and Maya felt like the world had stopped turning. Montana law recognizes the rights of finders under certain conditions. The property must be lost or abandoned. The finder must have lawful access to the location where the property was found, and the finder must take appropriate steps to locate the owner or report the find to authorities. Miss Torres meets all 3 criteria. The property was abandoned by Whitfield upon his death or disappearance. Miss Torres had lawful access to the lot, as the county had not restricted or secured it in any way, and she reported her discovery immediately. Christine squeezed Rebecca's hand under the table. "However," Judge Klein continued, and Maya's stomach dropped, "I cannot ignore the criminal origins of these assets. To award the entirety to a single finder would be inappropriate and contrary to public policy. Therefore, I am ruling as follows." She lifted a document and read from it. "Of the total recovered value of $265 million, the court finds that 42% shall be awarded to Maya Torres as the finder, subject to appropriate taxes and legal fees. This amounts to approximately $111 million pre-tax." The courtroom erupted. Gasps, shouts, the bang of Judge Klein's gavel demanding order. Maya couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process the number she'd just heard, $111 million. "Order!" Judge Klein shouted. The room quieted. "The remaining 58% will be distributed as follows. 20% to a victims' restitution fund for documented victims of Whitfield's crimes or their heirs. 20% to the state of Montana for law enforcement and crime prevention programs. 18% to Frostridge for community development, with specific oversight to ensure proper use. The funds will be placed in trust with quarterly reporting requirements." Judge Klein looked at Maya. "Miss Torres, this money comes with responsibility. I'm ordering that your portion be placed in a managed trust until you reach the age of 21. Your mother will serve as co-trustee with a court-appointed financial advisor to ensure the funds are used appropriately. You will have access to reasonable distributions for living expenses, education, and approved investments. But the bulk will remain protected until you're old enough to manage it yourself. Do you understand? Maya stood on shaking legs. Yes, Your Honor. Good, because with great fortune comes great scrutiny. People will want things from you. They'll lie to you, manipulate you, try to take advantage. You're going to need to be smarter and stronger than you've ever been. Do you think you can do that? Maya thought about the snow shack, about the mockery, about crawling into a dark vault alone, about testifying in front of a courtroom full of hostile faces. Yes, Your Honor, I can. Judge Klein nodded. I believe you. This court is adjourned. The gavel struck one final time. The courtroom exploded again, but Maya heard none of it. Rebecca pulled her into a crushing embrace, both of them crying. Christine was grinning, shaking Samuel's hand. Reporters rushed forward, but security held them back. They were escorted out through a side entrance, into a private room where they could breathe. Rebecca sat down hard, her face in her hands. I can't believe it, I can't believe it. Christine was already on her phone, coordinating with financial advisors and trustees. Samuel just stood there, arms crossed, a proud smile on his weathered face. You did it, kid. You actually did it. Maya felt numb. The number was too big. It didn't feel real. She'd gone from counting $23 to being told she'd receive over $100 million. How did anyone process that? What happens now? She asked quietly. Christine looked up from her phone. Now the real work begins. Setting up the trust, managing the assets, protecting you from people who'll come out of the woodwork. And believe me, they will come. She was right. Within hours, the news had spread worldwide. 11-year-old girl awarded $111 million fortune. The story dominated every news cycle. Maya's face was everywhere. Her phone, which had been quiet for weeks, suddenly exploded with notifications. Friend requests, messages, voicemails from people she'd never met. Distant relatives she didn't know existed suddenly appeared, claiming they'd always been close. Her father, who'd left when she was 2 and hadn't been heard from since, gave an interview saying he was so proud of his little girl and hoped they could reconnect. Rebecca threw her phone across the room when she saw that. Bryce, Jordan, and Natalie posted tearful apology videos. We were young and stupid, Natalie said, mascara running. Maya, if you're watching this, we're so sorry. We hope you can forgive us. The video had 10,000 likes. Maya didn't respond. She didn't owe them anything. The town of Frost Ridge reacted with a mix of celebration and resentment. Mayor Brennan held a press conference praising Maya as a shining example of our community's values, conveniently forgetting he'd tried to shut down her shack. Business owners who'd complained about her now wanted to name streets after her. The town council proposed a Maya Torres Day to honor her discovery. It was nauseating, but there were genuine responses too. Frank, the elderly veteran who'd been her first customer, sent a letter. I always knew you were something special. Don't let this money change who you are. Stay kind. Stay real. The young mother who'd bought hand warmers stopped by the ranch with her baby. You have no idea what this means to people like us. Not the money you got, but the fact that someone like you won. It gives us hope. Cole, the homeless man, left a note at the courthouse. You gave me hot chocolate when I had nothing. You treated me like a person. That's worth more than all the gold in the world. Don't forget that. Those messages, the real ones, mattered more than all the fake praise combined. But the transition wasn't easy. Moving back to Frost Ridge felt impossible. Too many eyes, too much attention. Rebecca and Maya decided to relocate to Missoula, a larger city 2 hours away where they could blend in more easily. They bought a modest house, nothing extravagant, just a 3-bedroom with a yard and working heat. Rebecca cried the first time she turned on the thermostat and warm air actually came out. Maya enrolled in a new school under a slightly altered name. Maya R. Torres became Maya Reyes, her mother's maiden name. It bought her some anonymity, at least for a while. The court-appointed financial advisor, a no-nonsense woman named Patricia Hollis, set up meetings every month. She taught Maya and Rebecca the basics of investing, trusts, taxes, and wealth management. Most people who come into money like this lose it within 5 years, Patricia said bluntly. They buy things they don't need, trust people they shouldn't, and wake up broke. You're not going to be one of those people. How do we avoid it? Maya asked. By being smart, by living below your means, by remembering that this money is a tool, not a trophy. Maya took that advice to heart. While she could have bought designer clothes and expensive cars, she didn't. She wore the same jeans and hoodies she'd always worn. She rode a used bike to school. She ate lunch in the cafeteria like everyone else. The only indulgence she allowed herself was books. She bought hundreds of them, filling shelves in her new room with stories of adventure, resilience, and hope. Rebecca, meanwhile, struggled with the transition. She'd worked her entire adult life. The idea of not working felt wrong, so she didn't stop. She took a part-time job at a community center, helping other single mothers navigate resources and support systems. I need to do something that matters, she told Maya. I can't just sit around spending money I didn't earn. You earned it by raising me, Maya said. Rebecca smiled sadly. That's not the same. But it was, and deep down, Rebecca knew it. 6 months after the verdict, Maya sat down with Patricia and Christine to discuss something she'd been thinking about since the day of the ruling. I want to start a foundation, Maya said. Patricia raised an eyebrow. For what purpose? To help kids like me. Kids who are trying to start small businesses or make money to help their families. I want to give them grants, supplies, mentorship. I want to show them that their ideas matter. Christine smiled. That's a beautiful idea, but it's also a lot of work. I know, but I want to do it. Over the next year, they built it from the ground up. The $5 Dreams Foundation launched quietly with a mission statement Maya wrote herself. Every big dream starts small. Sometimes it starts with $5 and the courage to try. The foundation offered micro-grants to young entrepreneurs, usually between $500 and $5,000, just enough to buy supplies, rent a space, or get a business license. Applications poured in from across the country. A 13-year-old girl in Ohio who wanted to start a dog-walking service. A 15-year-old boy in Texas who'd invented a solar-powered phone charger. A 10-year-old in California who made jewelry from recycled materials. Maya reviewed every application personally. She funded dozens of them, providing not just money but guidance, encouragement, and belief. She also returned to Frost Ridge, not to live but to build. The lot on Pike and Elm, once a forgotten eyesore, was transformed into Torres Community Park. Maya funded the entire project: playground equipment, walking paths, a small amphitheater for concerts and events. At the center of the park stood a glass monument. Inside, preserved exactly as it had been, was the original snow shack. Weathered wood, crooked sign, duct tape still visible on the corners. A plaque beneath it read, "Built by Maya Torres, age 11." A reminder that the smallest efforts can lead to the greatest discoveries. Dream big, start small, never give up. The park opened on a cool October afternoon, almost 2 years after Maya had first found the vault. Hundreds of people attended. Mayor Brennan tried to give a speech, but Maya politely declined his offer. Instead, she stood at the microphone, now 13, taller and more confident, but still recognizably the same girl who'd sold hot chocolate for $5. Thank you all for coming, she began, her voice steady. 2 years ago, I built a snow shack on this lot because I wanted to help my mum. People laughed. They called it trash. They said I was wasting my time. She looked out at the crowd, recognizing faces. Some kind, some guilty. I'm not going to lie and say that didn't hurt. It did. But it also taught me something important. People will doubt you, especially when you're young, especially when you're struggling, especially when you don't fit their idea of success. But that doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means they're not paying attention. She paused, letting that sink in. I didn't find that vault because I was lucky. I found it because I showed up every day, because I refused to quit, because I believed that doing something, even something small, was better than doing nothing. Her eyes found Frank in the crowd. He tipped his hat. This park isn't about me. It's about everyone who's ever felt invisible. Everyone who's been told their dreams are too small or too silly. It's a reminder that you matter. Your ideas matter. And you don't need millions of dollars to make a difference. Sometimes all you need is $5 and the guts to start. The crowd erupted in applause. Rebecca stood off to the side, tears streaming down her face, clapping harder than anyone. After the ceremony, people approached Maya. Some wanted autographs, some wanted photos. But the ones she remembered most were the kids. A little girl, maybe 7, tugged on her sleeve. "I want to start a business, but I don't know how." Maya knelt down. "What do you want to sell?" "Bracelets. I make them out of beads." "That's perfect. Do you have supplies?" The girl shook her head. Maya pulled out a business card for the $5 Dreams Foundation. "Give this to your parents. Tell them to apply. We'll help you get started." The girl's face lit up like Christmas morning. More kids came forward with ideas: bake sales, lemonade stands, lawn mowing services, art commissions. Maya listened to every single one, handing out cards, offering advice, planting seeds. As the sun set over the park and the crowd began to disperse, Maya walked over to the snow shack monument. She pressed her hand against the glass, staring at the structure that had changed everything. Samuel appeared beside her. "How do you feel?" he asked. Maya thought about it. "Grateful, scared, responsible." "Good," Samuel said. "That means you're doing it right. Do you think I'll mess it up? The money, the foundation, all of it?" "Probably," he said with a small smile. "Everyone messes up, but the fact that you're worried about it tells me you'll figure it out." Over the next few years, Maya's life found a rhythm. She finished middle school, then started high school, still using her mother's maiden name to maintain some privacy. She excelled in business classes and economics, fascinated by how money moved and how systems worked. Teachers who knew her story treated her normally, which she appreciated. Those who didn't know had no idea the quiet girl in the back row was worth over $70 million after taxes and trust distributions. She made a few close friends, carefully chosen. People who liked her before they knew about the money. People who called her out when she was wrong and celebrated her when she was right. Real friends. Rebecca continued her work at the community center, eventually becoming the director. She helped hundreds of families navigate poverty, unemployment, and housing insecurity. She became a fierce advocate, testifying at city council meetings and state legislative hearings. "I know what it's like," she'd say, "and I'm not going to be quiet while people suffer." The $5 Dreams Foundation grew beyond anything Maya had imagined. By the time she turned 16, they'd funded over 2,000 young entrepreneurs across all 50 states. Some failed, many succeeded. A few went on to build companies worth millions themselves. Each success story was sent to Maya with a thank you note. She kept every single one in a binder that now filled 3 shelves. The foundation also funded scholarships, after-school programs, and small business incubators in underserved communities. Maya traveled to ribbon cuttings and grand openings, always staying humble, always redirecting praise to the kids doing the work. Reporters occasionally tracked her down, wanting updates on the girl who found the fortune. She gave a few interviews, always with the same message: it's not about the money, it's about what you do with it. Frost Ridge changed too. The 18% of the vault's value that went to the town, nearly $48 million, was placed in a community trust with strict oversight. They rebuilt the school, paved roads, opened a medical clinic, and funded small business grants for local entrepreneurs. The town that had once mocked a little girl's snow shack became a model for rural revitalization. Mayor Brennan tried to take credit, but the people knew better. Every plaque, every building, every program funded by the trust carried a small inscription, made possible by the Torres discovery. It wasn't about ego. It was about remembering that change often comes from the most unexpected places and the most unexpected people. On Maya's 18th birthday, Patricia called a special meeting. "You're legally an adult now," she said, "which means the trust distributions increase. You'll have access to more funds, though the bulk remains protected until you're 21. "How much more?" Maya asked. "Approximately $5 million annually for discretionary use." The number still felt surreal. And at 21? Full access to the remaining balance, which current projections estimate at around $63 million after ongoing distributions, taxes, and operational costs for the foundation. Maya sat back. That's more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. Which is why it's important you don't try to spend it in one, Patricia said. The best thing you can do is continue what you're already doing. Invest wisely, live modestly, give generously. Maya nodded. That's the plan. But turning 18 brought other decisions. College, career. What did someone with $70 million study? What did they become? Maya struggled with it for months. She could do anything, go anywhere, be anyone. And somehow that made it harder. Rebecca noticed her daughter's restlessness. What's wrong, baby? Maya sat at the kitchen table, staring at a stack of college brochures. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Everyone expects something from me, something big. Forget everyone else. What do you want? Maya thought about it, really thought about it, and the answer surprised her. I want to help people who feel like I used to feel, invisible, unimportant, like their struggles don't matter. Rebecca smiled. Then do that. But how? However feels right to you. There's no rule book for this, Maya. You've already done more good than most people do in a lifetime. Whatever you choose next, it'll be the right choice because it's yours. Maya applied to the University of Montana, majoring in social work with a minor in nonprofit management. She moved into a dorm like any other freshman. She ate ramen and stayed up too late studying. She made mistakes, failed tests, and learned from them. Her roommate, a pre-med student named Ashley, had no idea about Maya's background. They became close friends, bonding over shared struggles and bad cafeteria food. One night, 6 months into freshman year, Ashley asked, "Hey, how do you afford school? I'm drowning in loans." Maya hesitated. She'd kept her secret for years, but Ashley deserved honesty. "I have a trust fund. I came into some money a few years ago." Ashley's eyes widened. Like how much money? A lot. Rich kid money or billionaire money? Somewhere in between. Ashley processed this. Then she shrugged. Cool. Can you spot me for pizza? Maya laughed. Yeah, I can spot you for pizza. That's how it went. When people found out, their reactions varied. Some got weird, treating her differently. Others didn't care. Maya learned to tell the difference quickly. She also learned that money didn't solve everything. It couldn't cure loneliness. It couldn't force people to like you. It couldn't erase the memory of being mocked, overlooked, and dismissed. But it could be used for good. And Maya made sure it was. During her sophomore year, she expanded the $5 Dreams Foundation to include a mentorship program. Successful entrepreneurs who'd received grants came back to teach the next generation. It became a network, a community, a movement. By her junior year, the foundation had chapters in 12 countries. Kids in Kenya, India, Brazil, and the Philippines were starting businesses with micro-grants and mentorship. The ripple effect was staggering. One girl in Mumbai started a tutoring service that grew into a school. A boy in Nairobi invented a water filtration system that served his entire village. A teenager in Sao Paulo created a recycling program that employed dozens of people. Maya visited as many of them as she could, always traveling modestly, always staying curious. She learned that poverty looked different everywhere, but hope looked the same. And everywhere she went, people asked the same question. How did you do it? Her answer never changed. I didn't. I just started and I didn't quit. On her 21st birthday, the remaining trust funds were released. Patricia handed her a portfolio showing the final numbers. $63 million plus the ongoing assets of the foundation, which had grown to over $90 million through investments and donations. Congratulations, Patricia said. You're officially wealthy beyond most people's wildest dreams. What are you going to do? Maya looked at the numbers, then at her mother sitting beside her, then at Samuel, who'd become family, then at Christine, who'd fought for her when no one else would. I'm going to keep going, Maya said. The shack was never the end. It was the beginning. She graduated with honors, gave a commencement speech about resilience and second chances, and immediately threw herself into the foundation's work full-time. She opened regional offices, hired staff who understood the mission, and built partnerships with organizations around the world. By the time she was 25, the $5 Dreams Foundation was one of the most respected youth entrepreneurship programs globally. And Maya Torres, once mocked for selling hot chocolate out of a wooden shack, was invited to speak at the United Nations about economic empowerment and breaking cycles of poverty. She stood at that podium, looking out at representatives from every country, and told her story. Not for sympathy, not for applause, but because someone, somewhere, needed to hear it. "I was 11 years old," she began, "when I built a snow shack and people laughed. I didn't have much. My mum and I were struggling just to survive. But I had an idea, and I had the courage to try. That's all any of us really need, an idea and the courage to try." She paused, looking at the sea of faces. "The money I found changed my life in practical ways, but it didn't change who I am. I'm still that girl who wanted to help her mom. I'm still that girl who believed $5 mattered. I still believe it. Because it's not about the amount, it's about the effort. It's about showing up when it's cold and hard and everyone's telling you to quit. It's about believing you matter even when the world says you don't." Her voice grew stronger. "So many people are one break away from changing their lives. One opportunity, one person who believes in them, one chance to prove they're capable of more than their circumstances suggest. The question is, are we willing to give them that chance? Or are we going to keep walking past their snow shacks, laughing, dismissing them, telling them their dreams are too small?" She let that question hang in the air. "I'm asking you to stop walking past. Notice the people struggling. Listen to the kids with ideas. Invest in the ones everyone else overlooks. Because the next breakthrough, the next innovation, the next movement might be happening right now in some forgotten corner of your city, run by someone the world has already decided doesn't matter. Prove the world wrong." The applause was thunderous, but Maya barely heard it. She was thinking about a little girl standing in the snow, hands frozen, sign flapping in the wind, wondering if anyone would ever stop. Someone did. A few kind souls who saw potential instead of poverty, who offered warmth instead of mockery. And that made all the difference. Years later, Maya returned to Frost Ridge one last time. She was 30 now, older, wiser, but still carrying the same quiet determination that had defined her childhood. The park was thriving. Kids played on the equipment she'd funded. Families picnicked on the grass. And at the center, the snow shack monument stood gleaming in the afternoon sun. She walked over to it, alone, and placed her hand on the glass. The shack looked so small now, so fragile. It was hard to believe it had held so much weight. But it had. Because it wasn't just wood and nails. It was belief. Belief that effort mattered. That showing up counted. That even when the world told you you were nothing, you could choose to be something. A little girl approached, maybe 8 years old, clutching her mother's hand. "Excuse me," she said shyly. "Are you Maya Torres?" Maya knelt down. "I am. My teacher told us about you. She said you built this when you were my age. A little older, but yes." The girl's eyes widened. "And you found treasure underneath?" Maya smiled. "I found something valuable, but the real treasure wasn't the money." "What was it?" Maya looked at the shack, then back at the girl. "It was learning that I mattered, that my ideas mattered, that I didn't have to be rich or powerful or special to make a difference. I just had to start." The girl thought about that. "I want to start something too." "What do you want to do?" "I want to sell cookies, homemade ones, to help my grandma pay for medicine." Maya's throat tightened. She reached into her bag and pulled out a business card for the foundation. "Give this to your mom. We'll help you." The girl took the card carefully, like it was made of gold. "Thank you." "No," Maya said softly. "Thank you for reminding me why I do this." As the girl ran back to her mother, Maya stood and looked around the park one last time. She thought about everything that had happened since that cold December morning when she'd hammered together a crooked shack and dared to believe it could matter. The mockery, the discovery, the danger, the verdict, the responsibility, the impact. All of it stemmed from one simple decision: to try. And now, looking at the families laughing, the children playing, the community thriving, she understood something profound. The snow shack hadn't just changed her life, it had changed how she saw life. It taught her that worth wasn't measured in dollars or status or approval. It was measured in effort, in kindness, in the courage to stand up when everyone else sat down. She walked toward her car, the Montana sun warm on her shoulders. Her phone buzzed with messages: kids applying for grants, partners requesting meetings, invitations to speak. The work never stopped. But she didn't mind, because this was her purpose. Not the money, not the fame. This. Helping others find their own $5 dreams and giving them the tools to build something real. Anyone can change their story if they refuse to give up on themselves. Anyone can build something meaningful from scraps and determination. And anyone, no matter how small or overlooked, can spark a movement if they're brave enough to start. Because for Maya Torres, and for every person who's ever been told they don't matter, the truth remains: you do matter. Your dreams matter. Your effort matters. And sometimes, the greatest fortunes aren't found beneath the ground. They're built with your own two hands, one brave decision at a time. The end. Up next, 2 more powerful stories that will move you. Click now to keep discovering and hit subscribe if you believe courage and persistence can change the world.